Let's address the elephant in the room first, right? I am probably what's known here today as an insider threat, right? Old Trafford, Scouser, what could go wrong? Keep the car running. It's not even my car, just keep it running. It's weird, this is the second talk I've ever done here. And actually, unusually, like most Scousers, I enjoy coming here. It's a wonderful, wonderful stadium. So thank you to the team for asking me to come back. If United's computer systems go down after today, I've got nothing to do with it, okay? So what am I here to talk about? Hang on, I didn't start my timer, which tells me to get off. Right, what am I here to talk about? I'm like the uneducated, rougher version of Tim Ward. Did you see Tim earlier on? Big, tall guy, good-looking guy with glasses. He's at the back, he's waving. Turn around, look at Tim, wave at him. Hello, Tim, everybody. There's Tim. I'm like the rougher, uneducated version of him, right? I am. So I talk about awareness similar to Tim does. I talk about the people in awareness similar to Tim does. But I do it laced with knob gags, essentially. So that's what you're going to get from me. There may be a little bit of colourful language, just a little bit. It won't be too bad. It'll be fine. It'll pass. So I kind of term this talk, it's definitely you, Cyber, it's not me, right? It's almost like a breakup letter to Cyber. I used to call it, who you calling the weakest link, dickhead. But that was a bit aggressive, wasn't it? A little bit aggressive. Or sometimes, are we stupid or what? And I think the thing that prompted me to do it was just some of the fury I was getting in when I see some of the marketing terms that are bandied about when we talk about people and colleagues. And it just a show of hands, who considers they're in cyber? Actually in cyber doing stuff? Nobody here? Well, a few. So everybody else, one at the back, nice. So everybody else isn't in cyber, right? You have something to do with it, or you're just here to see Stephen and I'm killing a bit of time. Is that what it is? Yeah? Who said yeah then? Was that you, Rob? No, good, okay. I'd no need to do Everton jokes then, Rob. We'll be fine. It's weird, actually. So the term cyber itself, and we make a big thing. Oh, what job do you do? Oh, I'm in cyber. As if everybody's going to go, oh, that's interesting, right? And I really do think, in my mind, I've got a picture of a couple of geeks talking to each other saying, how are we going to get invited to the Christmas party? Or are we going to get off with anybody? I know. Let's give our industry a cool name. Let's call it cyber. You got cyberspace, cyber awareness, cyber espionage, all of that nonsense. What they've probably forgotten, though, the term was used in the early 90s as a verb. It was to cyber, right? And that meant to have online relations with somebody else. You know, virtual sex. Essentially, knocking one out on cam is what it was, right? So here's the thing. In my mind, when I ever heard somebody could say, what do you do? I'm in cyber. I'm thinking, yeah, I know what you are. And everybody else knows what you are. It's a weird thing to be going by. It's kind of why I call my company CyberOff, as a slight insult. You know, saves me getting cancelled for telling people to something off on the other way. So I think part of this kicked off with when you're in cyber, right? When you're in cyber, you're your family and friends' IT support, aren't you? Yeah? You're there. What about this? Is this an attack? Is this a phishing email? Can you rebuild my PC? And I tell you what doesn't leave you ever is when you have to rebuild your parents' PC, right? And after the third or fourth time, when you see your dad's browsing history, it's something that no therapist in the world can ever prepare you for, right? It's really I didn't know he had such niche tastes, to be quite honest. Slightly impressed by it. So I think for me, I like to talk about people, but I like to talk about people from a kind of ordinary working class person in the street who champions the people who are forgotten by cyber, right? I think people are forgotten. We use terms like the weakest link, or we use terms like 90% of breaches are human error. You know, we're using the terms like. I'm thinking, what's the other 10% of breaches though? Because surely 100% of breaches have a human at heart, right? Is the other 10% squirrels? Is it rats? Is it dark matter? I don't know. It could be, but it should be 100%, and we should be okay with that. We should be okay. And I think where you going? Whoa, lock the doors. He's not getting out unless you need the loo. Yeah, smile away. I'll find you later. He's pretending to take a call. No, oh no. So I think we need to set up some ideas around people and what people do and what they can't do and what they can do within cyber. And Tim touched on a few bits and pieces. I think we have to accept we are all idiots, right? If we don't accept we're idiots, we're in a bad place. We are carbon-based life forms that just happen to have consciousness foisted upon us about 75,000 years ago. From an anthropological point of view, I deep dive a bit into anthropology because it's interesting, right? But there's a theory that we got consciousness from magic mushrooms. Right? That's the thing. I would love that to be true, right? I would love all of this to be a mistake of a couple of Neanderthals going, have a bit of that, mate. It's fucking awesome. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? Just so I think part of my talk is to dispel some of these myths that we're at fault, we're at error. Because we need to think about it. People will make mistakes. We're idiots. We'll make mistakes. I didn't want Mean to score a goal, an own goal from the halfway line by lobbing the keeper. It just happened, right? It's a couple of things why I'm here, by the way. 2 reasons why I'm here. I didn't quite make it as a pro footballer. I didn't. But I did play at Wembley once. That's my claim to fame. Ooh, that deserves a new. Come on. That deserves... Listen, either do it or don't do it, right? Don't ask about in between. Right, I used to play at Wembley. There you go. I once... a round of... Who did the round of applause? Give them a fish. It was only one. I got the best response to that ever, by the way. I normally shoehorn it into any conversation. It could be a funeral, whatever. I'll get that in. And I said it to somebody once. I said, oh, yeah, I played at Wembley. Feeling all proud of myself. And they shot back at me straight away and they said, oh, that's nice. What instrument did you play? What instrument? They've obviously looked me up and down and gone, never an athlete. Never an athlete as long as his arse points south, which is a fair assumption. They admitted to me they thought I was part of the brass band. Right, where was I? I'll do this. I'll go off topic, and then I'll kind of come back to it. So about people being the weakest link and about people making mistakes. So I didn't mean to score the own goal. If people didn't make mistakes, right, or didn't do stuff that everybody else thought was common sense, that's another thing. We should ban that from the lexicon. Common sense is not a universal constant, right? Because every day you'll get people making the same mistakes. If common sense was universal, you wouldn't need caution hot contents on a coffee cup, would you? You wouldn't really. You go, I'm going to need a bit of coffee. Oh, that's a bit warm. I best not pour it over myself, right? You go, yeah, all right. Or you wouldn't need on a jar of peanut butter, caution may contain nuts. I hope it would contain nuts. It's got nuts in the title, right? I can work that stuff out for myself. So we have to accept we're fallible, right? We're fallible people. We'll make mistakes. That's kind of okay. I think the other thing that we've got to accept is, oh, he's back, all right? How are you? Were you just going out for your mate? Bring it in, because this was such a great talk. Good man, you can come to every gig I do. So we were just killing time till he got back, to be quite honest. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, the common sense bit, we need to get rid of that. It stifles us by turning around saying, oh, that's common sense, why didn't you do that? And it's common sense to us because we've probably failed at it before, right? Tim spoke about failure earlier on and about the ability of maybe failure and ego and stuff like that. But failure does teach us valuable lessons as well, right? You know, failure does teach you not to keep poking a cat in the face, right? Because you're going to get any cat lovers in, by the way? By the way? Oh, there's a few. There's a few. You know when you have that debate of cats versus dogs, and then you turn around and go, yeah, I'm more of a cat person. You know you're admitting to somebody that you know years from now you're dying alone stinking of piss. You know that, don't you? See, I'll weave in some of the stand-up as well. Sorry, Tim. So, the other thing about people are, there's bad people everywhere, right? There are bad people everywhere. Hang on. And there've always been bad people everywhere. So even during the hunter-gatherer days, there'll be some little so-and-so who would want to steal your nuts and berries, right? After you've been out all day gathering nuts and berries. So I don't think we should be surprised when bad stuff happens on the internet, right? It's just an extension of what happens in normal life. Yet we seem to think that they've been embodied with some supernatural powers or stuff like that, you know, when we actually realize that most of the time it's probably us not doing the things we should be doing in the first place when it comes to a cyber point of view. I think the other thing that gets me around this is the terrible ways and the negative contexts and the way we want to speak to the individuals who are in our charge. So if Simon Sinek says about being a leader, you're not in charge of people, they're in your charge. Now, if you've come here for inspirational quotes, you're not getting any, right? You're really not getting any. But that's my one inspirational, that's what he says. And I think we need to take a leaf from his book, if we are in any kind of position of power in cyber, to actually help people who aren't in cyber. I heard it here today. I'm not going to pick on anyone or anything like that, but I heard it here today. Cybersecurity is everyone's job. No, it's not. It really isn't. Cybersecurity is the cybersecurity people's job, right? They come to work to do that job. They get paid handsomely for it. In cybersecurity, we all get paid handsomely for it. If you're not in cybersecurity, get in cybersecurity because it pays handsomely, right? I've got 2 houses. I'm not even squatting in any of them. It's great. Get in cybersecurity. But it really is an interesting concept when people start talking that way and start talking in those negative terms. Right, so weakest link is one, right? That's terrible. We shouldn't talk to people. Unless you're Anne Robinson, you shouldn't mention weakest link to anybody, right? The other one is human firewall. It's a wonderful one, right? It's a marketing term somebody's dreamt up to try and get people involved as a last line of defense for cybersecurity. That comes from human shield, right? Think about what a human shield is. Think about where it was used. Do you actually want to be turning your people into that type of thing to take collateral damage for your business? You know, and when you think about the business, think about what you're actually trying to ask people to do. Most businesses selfishly turn around and go, right, here's some training to protect us because we're really important. When actually, if anything bad happens to this business and we need to cut staff, you're the first one for the chop and block anyway. Remember that. So actually, if you start giving people something that they are interested in, that they can use personally in their home lives, then you got half a chance then. You don't even have to mandate it. I saw it on Tim's. Tim, I'm robbing your talk here, mate. There should be royalties or stuff like that. Like I said, he's the educated, erudite version of me, right? But you know, we really should be thinking about that a bit more. That if we give people stuff that they want to use, they want to learn, then training is going to be much easier for them, right? You know, and that brings me to content. So that brings me to content and terrible content, right? I think when I started doing awareness, there was stuff like around trying to help people with passwords, right? You wouldn't share your underpants with people, so why would you share your passwords, right? I'm thinking, which pervert is sharing underpants with people? I've been in many, many dressing rooms throughout my career as a footballer. I've never once looked at any of my teammates and gone, there's some cracking undercrackers you've got there, mate. Would you like to share them with me? It just doesn't, so it doesn't mean a lot to people, you know? And and then you get the padlocks, you get the hoodies, and then you get the arguments of the people in cyber who don't like hoodies because they think it's a stereotype. That's not the worst stereotype in the world, by the way. If that's your only stereotype that you're wearing a hoodie, you've got off lightly, let me tell you that. Right, there's better hills to die on than, oh, don't use hoodies and gloves and stuff like that. There are more better hills to die on. Die on the hill where the government allows their people to avoid tax, or die on a hill where a government wants to ban working people from exercising their right to strike, right? Do that, ban that shit, right? Oh, I got a round of applause. Can I go now? Does that mean I can go? I could carry on, but I'd probably sound like Derek Hatton then for the rest of you who can remember who Deggsy was, right? Just my, which is weird. It's weird because even though I'm from Liverpool, I left 30 years ago. I now live in Bath. Ooh, that deserves another, right? And every time I come home to the north or go to family and friends, I get the same response whenever. So I'm more of an ex-Scouser now, right? And even though I retain the accent, every time I come home, I can walk into the room and I'll get the same response from anybody. I promise you, this is what I get. I'll walk into the room and I'll hear, here he is, the posh Tory nonce. That's true. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who you calling a Tory? Mum? It's not my fault kids find this look attractive. I nearly got away with that last one, didn't I? I nearly got away with it. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I never know where these talks are going to go, right? So I just write a bunch of notes and I keep going back and thinking, security culture. Tim mentioned it a bit earlier on. Again, stealing your talk. Sorry, mate. Sorry. Security culture. Oh, where do I start with this? Right. We've been having a go at culture for probably the past 75,000 years, right? As a race. We still don't get it, and we still don't do it. Why do we think we're going to do it in 18 months by buying a product or a service within a company? Why do we think we're going to do that? Why do we think that we're going to develop a culture within an organization that, like I said earlier on, will get rid of you when their profits slump, right? They'll get rid of you. What kind of culture is that we want to build? I think what we should be talking about, personally, is empathy and compassion. I think that's what we should. Now, for the men in the room, right? Empathy is when you listen more than you talk, okay? I know I don't have that skill. I know, because my wife reminds me of it all the time, so it is really a difficult thing for me to talk about. But so here's an example of empathy for the blokes, right? If your wife comes in and she goes, a little bit thirsty, I've had a bad day, I'm feeling a bit sad, your response isn't to make her a cup of tea, right? That isn't empathy, that's sympathy. Your response is to sit there and listen to her, or at least pretend to listen to her, okay, whilst the footy's on in the background, right? That is empathy 101. But we don't do it often enough in cyber. Again, that language, weakest link. I heard something the other week. I was on I was moderating a call, and there's a bunch of cybersecurity professionals on there. And one of them, a CISO, to get a point across, spoke about his people as wet sacks of meat. I'll leave that with you. Yeah, there's a few people going, oh no. Yeah, he actually said that. I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't challenge him on it because I was the moderator on the call, right? So I couldn't call him out on it. But at least we know what the C in CISO stands for now, right? He did, honestly. And I was wanting to get right in there. So I think it's important about the language we use. I think it's important about how we describe stuff to people. People don't get it, and they shouldn't have to get it. They shouldn't have to really know what MFA is. You know, they shouldn't have to know what 2FA is. They probably just care what Sweet FA is, to be quite honest, you know. We shouldn't have to turn them into experts. We should make it really easy for them. We shouldn't have to say to them, oh, what have you done now, when they come in? Because they'll avoid us. they'll avoid us. And I think that's part of my chat and talk, is that if we make it difficult, if we make going to security like an episode of the IT Crowd where people are afraid to walk into mission control for the fear of taking the piss out of them, right? Then people will go around us. People will go around us. We need to join. We need to join in with people. I once explained, controversially, cyber as almost an apartheid system, right? Where we're the minority in this. We're the minority trying to talk down to the majority in it, trying to make rules that they don't want to follow and shouldn't follow. So we need to cross the street and we need to drop the arrogance a little bit. And I think that's where most of the videos and content comes from my point of view. It comes from a point of view of humour and making it engaging and make it compelling to watch and not asking too much of people. Sarah mentioned earlier on scantily clad videos and things like that, and that I was dressed today. Well, I've got a surprise for you. No, I'm joking. My son's 21, right? And he watches these videos and he goes, "Oh, Dad, no, not again." I showed him the Rocky Horror one when I'm dressed up in the full Frankenfurter thing, and he went, "Oh, Dad, can I divorce you?" I was like, yeah. But the idea is to make it a bit more enjoyable for people. It is a bit dull, right? For all of you who are in cyber, news shock, it's dull, right? It's dull for everybody outside of cyber, you know? I hear people in cyber, "Where are you going? A call? Is somebody dying? No? Get back." And we should make it interesting for people. Something I get all the time about the videos and stuff like that is, what if you offend somebody? All right, so what? So what? I can't control other people's emotions, right? I know from my point of view, if it's coming from a good place, and I don't want to do rules of comedy or any of that nonsense, but I'm not kind of punching down or anything like that. I'm not picking on somebody. I'm always the butt of the joke. I'm always the idiot in the scene. Then I'm kind of okay. People will see what they want to see in it, right? I had a guy once, I did a kung fu video where I took a pastiche, of old kung fu movies, bad dubbing, all of that stuff. And he called me a racist. And I'm like, "Why am I a racist on that?" And he said, "Well, it's cultural appropriation." I went, "Are the Beatles racist then? Or is Elvis a racist?" Because that is all cultural appropriation, right? And it's weird what other people see in a context of a video that just isn't there, but and I think I've learned over time that I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about what other people see in it as long as I know where it's coming from. And I think sometimes that's when it goes through a HR department, and I can understand why videos like mine aren't used in bigger companies, because it has to go through a bunch of people who are all pretending to be Mary Whitehouses, right? For those of you who are old enough to remember who Mary Whitehouse was, which seems to be that side of the room for some unknown reason. So, listen, what shall I leave you with? What shall I... yes, so, laughter's universal. Laughter helps people remember. Laughter is a great tool. It was one of the things my dad passed away just before Christmas, right? I don't say that for sympathy or anything like that, but the one thing he left me with, apart from a house, but the one thing he left me with was a joy of laughter. It was a sense of humour. It's the one thing I'm eternally grateful for. My dad could watch the same Laurel and Hardy sketch over and over again and still crack himself up with laughing. And I think that's why he got to the age he did. Now, he kind of died youngish, 78, right? But my dad smoked 45 cigarettes a day, drank 50 cup of teas a day with 6 sugars in, and had the worst diet in the world. So by rights, he should have died 40 years ago, to be quite honest, But I think laughter kept him going. And laughter kept us going, especially as kids, through the 80s, the 70s and 80s in Liverpool, which weren't the funniest of times, right? It was kind of a bit tough, but I think the thing that gets you through it is laughter. I think the thing I'm saying is, when you're attaching stuff to a happy emotion, you can attach stuff to happy or bad emotions. Bad emotions you want to bury, so you don't want to remember that stuff, right? But the happy ones you'll recall over and over again. Think of when you get together with your mates, right? When you get together with your mates, you're having a pint or a glass of wine or whatever it is, and you go, remember when? Right. That is when things like that start to work. Now, I think my time's up. You've come on stage to kick me off, haven't you? Just gradually moving, and I keep moving away from you. Listen, that's been great. My name's Ian Murphy. If you want to follow me on Insta for the Comedy Nonsense, it's at Ian J. Murphy 4. If you've got any questions, by all means, stick your hands up. I'll answer questions. I'll take general knowledge, shit like that. That's no problem. Thank you very much. Bless you.